Hello and welcome back to part 2 of my conversation with Rachel Lawland. Rachel is the other half of Women Other Medicine, and if you missed part 1, we spoke about the events that shaped us, how we came to psychedelics and their role in our transformation, and we share with you all of our secrets and perspectives and understandings about microdosing, and we introduce to you our program, The Art of Microdosing for Women. So, Rachel, let's get back to our conversation. I think where we left it off, we had seen one another on the microdosing program, but we hadn't yet connected in person. Do you want to fill everybody in about what happened when we signed up to the psychedelic integration coaching certification?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think first off, there's an interesting story about, I think probably for both of us, about actually signing up for that. Because I know for me, I had been thinking for quite some time about retraining. And I was thinking that I was going to go back to university and do an MSc in psychology. But as discussed, we've both done this, signed up and done this microdosing course with Third Wave. And I had been sort of intentionally using psychedelics for a little while at that point. And when they announced that they were launching a coaching certification, I was just like, oh my God, I have got to do that. I had such a full body yes to it. And then at the same time, I did have that sort of rational part of me kicking in, going, are you fucking kidding? What? And which I have to say was then backed up. Well, it's like when I told my then partner, when I told friends, I didn't actually tell my family. There was not really any point. But I mean, everyone's response was like, "Are you joking?" I said, "Did you have that? Did you have that response?" Or
I didn't really tell anybody. I mean, there was no one. There was no one like really. I just I did it. But what I do remember is I was actually, because I'd had such a positive and powerful experience with microdosing, I was actually looking for a retreat, and I was really set on sitting with ayahuasca for some reason, and I think that's why I'd signed up to the Third Wave, because I wanted to hear about. I think they've got a directory about what retreats you can go on. I know ours is listed on there. But I received a newsletter from them, and it said that they were running this coaching certification program. My ears pricked up, and it said it had a retreat in the middle of it. And I was like, at that time, I think it was going to be in Utah. And I was like, I want to go to Utah. I'd love that. So what was kind of pulling me was my own experience. But then I thought, actually, like you, coaching certification in how to help people integrate psychedelics, that sounds phenomenal. Like, again, full body yes from me. Mm-hmm. And my concerns were that I didn't have the right qualifications to make the most of it. And of course, lo and behold, I've now been on faculty for the Third Wave for the last 4 cohorts that they've done. So again, that self-doubt, that little voice in me saying, you're not good enough for this, you're not ready. But I'm so glad that I pushed the button on it.
Yeah, it was a really great experience, I think, for both of us. And of course, it led to, that was more time on the Zoom screen together. But the thing that changed everything was meeting in the flesh. Yeah. So the first time I met you was in Costa Rica at the fantastically beautiful Brave Earth. And they put us in a jungle hut on the furthest edge of the, we were the only Brits, so of course they sort of put us together as far away from anyone else as possible. And that was just incredible. I mean, it's an amazing place. It's so beautiful. I mean, Costa Rica is so beautiful, and there you're sort of in the heart of the rainforest in this amazing sort of eco settlement. Um, and in that jungle hut where you could hear God knows what, just literally outside
Howler
howling.
monkeys and the
Yeah,
toucans coming in every morning, 5 a.m. Yeah,
yeah.
I'm so
It
glad
was
they put us together though, because immediately, as soon as I met you and felt your energy, I just fell in love with you. It was like, oh, this woman, I could talk to her all night, which we pretty much did every day.
I mean, I absolutely, feeling is mutual, but as well, I think there's something about. I mean, it's interesting because we were on a training course, but we were also on a retreat, so it was part self-development, it was part community building. It was such a powerful experience to be in that, and I guess like because we were really supporting each other. The whole group was supporting each other,
Yes.
but you know, to be able to sit and work on our intentions together, to and then to process ceremony
Yes.
together. It was,
It was very special.
yeah,
It was
it
super
was
special.
special.
And we met some incredible people, some incredible women. Lauren Muggleby, who I interviewed on the podcast as well. And obviously, I've got some other of those, that incredible network on the list to interview too. But we really did, it really was a pivotal moment for me getting to that, having that experience and being put in that room with you. And that, isn't it interesting in life? You know, we talk a little bit about synchronicity, and you know, synchronicity, sometimes people think it's just felt in the moment, but actually what I love to do is to look back and go, look at all those, like a bit like a dot to dot, look at all the constellations, all the little points where my life sort of took a little direction, and
Yeah,
who was involved in that. And usually it's, you know, usually it's people and that come into your life, and also like internal decisions, like really saying yes to something and making a decision and cutting yourself off from the other alternative, right? Or the other alternatives, but actually going, I'm going to change the course of my life and go this way. And when you look backwards, I think that you can really start to see that the things that felt really random, or
hmm,
just coincidental, like now, a few years on, are so, like, it's a principle in our business around femininity and the power of the feminine. And what did we do after we left Costa Rica? Because we wanted to get together again, right? We wanted to get together. We hadn't decided to set up a business or anything of that sort. We were just like, I think both of us actually were quite cautious and hesitant around, you know, trying to bring in psychedelics into our businesses immediately. We were like, oh, we're going to give it some time. I can't really see us doing it. And we were kind of getting
yeah,
together to explore psychedelics for our own self-development.
yeah. No, I remember that as well, because it was really interesting having that experience, because the majority of people who were there were North American, and many of them sort of from places in the States like Oregon or California, I guess, where
Colorado.
the practice of microdosing, the practice of working intentionally with psychedelics is so much more accepted and further along. So I think we were probably rightly very hesitant about, well, what's the status? The status is completely different in the UK. Um, but I would say, I mean, just before we go on and talk about how we founded the business, which is one of my favourite stories in the world.
Ever, I know.
It's a good founder story. It's hilarious. But just I just want to say, I think there were a couple of things that were so powerful for me on our retreat and that training with Third Wave, which I think were really key for where we've ended up. So the first one which you touched on is that listening to your whole body, yes, yeah, and which is so hard. It's so hard for us when we live in a society which denies that we even have intuition. That's just nonsense. You know, if you can't see it, if you can't touch it, it doesn't exist. Bullshit. Like we both had that feeling that made literally not a single bit of logical sense, but we followed it, and it has been completely life changing for both of us. The second thing I think I just wanted to make, there's a really interesting point though about retreat work, and just thinking when you said you were looking for a retreat, and originally you were looking for an ayahuasca retreat, which always makes me like, oh God, you know, there's so many people that jump in to psychedelics, have never microdosed, have never worked with any substance, and they jump in at ayahuasca, which I would say is quite a challenging place to jump in. You know, I really, and this is something that I think was very helpful in our training program, was the whole emphasis on, start low and go slow. Just you really need to feel your way in, and you need to work at the speed of your nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if your nervous system is not used to, we hear things with psychedelics, or you have to be able to let go and surrender. I mean, yeah, like how many of our nervous systems are really good at letting go and surrendering? It is not something that we're taught, right? So I think it's really, I just want to say this, because for anybody who's thinking of working with psychedelics, just be really, really mindful about where you jump in and what substance you jump in with. The other thing that I really appreciated about our training and the retreat within that was the fact that, obviously, because it was a training program, we'd all got to know each other online beforehand for weeks and weeks and weeks. We were all really familiar faces, so that when we rocked up in the flesh, it wasn't a bunch of strangers. It was, and it was quite a big group. It was 35 people or so,
maybe even
but
more. Yeah,
it felt like we got to know everyone. We'd begun the process, so and that is so important when you are working with psychedelics, because you don't want to be putting your nervous system into a room with a bunch of strange other nervous systems. That's not good for feelings of safety. This is very important when it comes to us deciding, you know what, there are so many terrible retreat experiences. We can actually do a lot better than this. We can do this a lot more safely. But I did just want to mention that. And again, I think it's the importance of community and trust, and having a small group of people that you're comfortable with when you're working with these substances.
Yeah, I love that. And just an aside, we had a retreat in October, which was wrapped in a preparation and integration phase group program. And shout out to those incredible women who I know some of them are going to be listening, but have formed lifelong bonds by undertaking and going through that experience with one another and supporting one another and being vulnerable. And it's sometimes the medicine is not just for you. You are also the medicine for yourself and each other, right? So this is why we, the name, but we're going to talk about that in a second. But I just wanted to give a real life example of how there is this continuous, beautiful tapestry of connections and community that we can envisage with what we're doing, and how vital it is for women to, whether it's through us or not, because obviously we're only one organisation, but to create those networks of support, because that's what we used to have. That's what we used to, how we used to thrive as women, by gathering together. And to not have that in your life now, I cannot imagine not having those experiences in my life now on a regular basis, getting together to share and to witness and to heal and to dance and to shout and to just sing and to be. It's so like dialed in now to what it is that I want to have in my life. Like, sod going to the pub. Like, take me to a ceremony or take me to a women's circle. That is, like, for me, that's my idea of heaven.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. And I would just say, like, if anyone is listening and is thinking of going on retreat, then please just make sure that it's got good preparation and integration. That's so important. You do not, there's so many programs where you get like a couple of Zoom calls afterwards and you're on your own. You really want to look for a program that's got a better wraparound support than that.
Or get support from a psychedelic integration coach to support you through before and after that journey. Yeah, I think that's super key. Thanks, Rach. Okay.
So should we talk about
the British Museum?
Talk about how we founded our business, which took us both by surprise, I think it's safe to say.
Yeah.
Because this was the plan. Okay. The plan was to take a museum dose, right? So there are all these different doses that you can take with psychedelics. Obviously, you can take microdose, a mini dose. You can take a full dose, and then there's a heroic dose, which is the big, full-on, blow your head off. But there's this dose that I had never heard of before, the museum dose, which is it's not a full dose where you would have to actually sort of lie down and take things really easy. So it's called a museum dose because you're meant to be able to go and walk around a museum and have some really interesting, maybe visuals, an interesting experience, shall we say, without anyone hopefully realizing what you're up to. That's the theory, right? So we'd both found out about this, and it being Naz and I, we were like, well, we've got to do that, haven't we? So of course we were like, okay, well, where are we going to go? Do you want to talk about where we went, Naz?
Yeah. Okay. So
Where better?
The British Museum in London. So Rachel lives in Stroud, and I was living in Poole at the time. And I got an email through about this exhibition that was on at the British Museum called The Divine and the Demonic Feminine. It was basically goddesses and deities from all different myths and religions and spiritual texts. And they'd create this exhibition. So I was like, let's go there. That sounds incredible. So we met in the morning, didn't we? Met in the coffee shop, and we had our museum dose with some hot chocolate because replacing the cacao. And off we went up the stairs to this exhibition, which was full of sculptures and pieces of art of goddesses like Lilith and Pele and Green Tara and Kali. Oh my God. It was so powerful. And of course, we're on this museum dose of mushrooms. So our perception is opened up, and we're really I felt like I was really connecting with the energy of each one of these pieces. And then
it was incredible. And I have to mention that, and this is classic Naz, that we sort of set off on this experience, and we're going around, and she's like, I I'm not sure I'm feeling that much. Should we have a bit more? Should we have a bit more? So we decided to updose as usual. And classic, of course, that the minute we'd updosed, or about 3 minutes after the first dose kicked in. So we're like, oh, okay, this is going to be interesting.
It was interesting.
So,
And the point of that exhibition was actually, it's really pertinent to our mission, because it's not just about the fact that, yes, female deities and goddesses are powerful and destructive and benevolent and great and terrifying. It's who controls the narrative of these goddesses and deities, right? Throughout history, throughout text, who decides whether she is good or evil, whether she needs to be banished to hell or the outer cosmos, or whether or not she is brought offerings and she's celebrated once a year. Who gets to decide that? Well, it's not always women. Okay. And so that came through for me, is that some of these goddesses that were, Lilith, for example, has got a really bad reputation. But when you actually hear of her story, you're like, hang on a minute, there's another side to this. So seeing these beings and deities from a new perspective really opened my eyes, because otherwise you're just believing what you're told. Well, it's fact. Kali is destructive and evil, and she's terrifying, but also she's kind and benevolent, and she will give life. And it just it really is. There are so many nuances to it.
I think for me, one of the things that I really got in that exhibition was just how impoverished our views of femininity are right now. That for centuries, really, we've had this absolutely, domesticated view of femininity that's all about being soft and kind and nice and generous and meek and mild and all of that. And equally, we've kind of got new narratives coming up. We had all the different waves of feminism and what each of those have stood for. And more recently, we've got like girl bosses. We've got narratives which have maybe a bit more power to them, but I would also, I mean, compared to Kali, not much more power. It's still very much within the bounds of it being Instagrammable. And
yes, it's masculine power as well, isn't it? It's very much that, it's acceptable. It's like women leaning into the masculine for their power, right? To push through and to be strong and be resilient. And
so that was a really big thing, I think, for both of us, going round and just the nuance, with any god, with any goddess, with any archetype, there's always the dark and the light. There's all the different shades. There's all the different faces, because all of those different goddesses are faces of the feminine.
Yes.
Some of them are terrifying. Some of them are alluring, but they're all really, really powerful. And there was this is a story of two parts, because we then left this exhibition and somehow made it into another exhibition which was a stone. It was an exhibition about Stonehenge, which was an absolutely incredible. It wasn't just the mushrooms; it was a brilliantly curated exhibition. But it was the thing about that. It started off. You went into this exhibition, and it was all audio soundscaped. It was beautiful. So you went in, and it was a sort of
It was dark, wasn't it?
twilight. It was
Yes.
dark. You were in the woods, in the forest, and they had this incredible headdress of a shaman, didn't they? And they had, I think it was all hung on invisible thread. So it it looked like you could imagine an invisible woman within this headdress wearing it in the forest. Absolutely beautiful. And you sort of walked through this incredible twilighty Neolithic exhibition, and at the far end you had, I always get it wrong, was it
I think it was a
sunrise and
sunrise. I
sunset?
think it was a sunrise,
Sunrise and sunset.
and then it would set.
Yeah, over Stonehenge.
Beautiful, like the whole of the back wall, and it was like this sun. The light changed in the room, didn't it? The light was changing in the room, but it was sort of just gave it such atmosphere. So it was timeless in and of itself, but obviously the effect of the mushrooms had put us into that timelessness state anyway.
But then there was a shock waiting at the end, because as you sort of turned round the corner at the end of the exhibition, you basically, it was the movement from the Stone Age into the Bronze Age and beyond. So you turned around the corner, and suddenly there were all these kind of bronze and gold artifacts, and you went into the age of commerce, the age of the dawn of capitalism, really, and warfare and territory disputes and fights. And there was a palpable shift in the energy from this twilighty, connected to nature. We're working with the stone, working with the wood, working with the spirits of the ancestors, coming round the corner and basically, bam, hitting what sort of felt to me like hitting patriarchy, hitting commerce, hitting war in the face, not just as minor skirmishes between individuals or tribes, but as a sort of modern movement of, this land is our land, this gold is our land, is our gold, this bronze is our bronze. And that, for me, I can still feel it actually talking about it. It felt cold in my body as I walked around there. And coming out of that exhibition, I think it's safe to say, we both had a really profound experience, and we came out with the name of our business. Actually, it just appeared. So Women as a Medicine.
We were having that conversation, I think, at the end of we sat by the sunrise, and we were watching. Actually, we were paying attention to the men in the room. This is the point when we were having a little break. I think we'd been there a few hours. We'd had some chewing gum and we were sat there, seeing the same people, seeing the same faces again, and going, how are they still in here with us? Like, is everyone here like an actor? It felt very staged. It felt like this whole thing had been put on for us as as an experience, as a scene. So I remember seeing, relatively middle and old aged men with their little with their sensible sandals and their little backpacks and looking like their slightly hunched forward posture. And they had this incredible ability to give off the energy of entitlement and yet also produce sympathy from me. Because what I saw in that, what I saw through that exhibition was the weakened, defensive, aggressive energy of the patriarchy, of the masculine, that is in charge, but somehow is being disempowered. And I remember my take on it was around, because we'd just come from the divine feminine and feeling this feminine energy and going, gosh, have we as women, because we're so damn powerful, have we somehow emasculated men to the point that they have completely objectified us and devalued us? And what on earth could have happened to create that shift in that energy? And how, like, I'm always, me, I'm very solutions orientated. I'm like, how can we restore the balance, right? Because it's not about that feminine is better than masculine. But it is about understanding what those energies, what the particular nuances of those energies are, and how do we readdress that balance? And I remember thinking, yes, in order to take down the sort of patriarchal, capitalist, oppressive, colonialist, prevailing sort of paradigm of the moment, how are we going to readdress that? And it is about reclaiming the feminine, but the feminine doesn't emasculate the masculine. The feminine appreciates the masculine for what that energy really means. And that energy is incredibly powerful. We need it both. And I just remember thinking, gosh, all of these sad little men. And then everywhere we would go, even coming out of the museum, then we'd be looking and we'd be just seeing sad little men. Sad little men. That's what I remember.
And I think it's important because but that, for me, that was being able to see. It's almost being able to see people's shadows, right? Because what happens is when the same as with the feminine, when we're forced to contort ourselves into what society says women should be and act like, then a lot of our power goes into our shadow. We don't express it. Men are meant to be powerful and confident and swaggering and all the rest of it. But I feel like what that experience for us was like being able to see the little lost boys within that. And the little lost boy is the shadow part that really just wants a hug. And, that, like, even with some of the most horrific men that we can see around us running the world, unfortunately, I think that's true. Even when you look at people who are quite obviously narcissists or psychopaths, you have to, at the same time, think somewhere in there is a lost little boy that didn't get the love that he expected, and look how he's turned out. And that's the truth of what patriarchy does. It's not a system for men. It's not a system for any of us. And what it's done in terms of totally unbalancing men and women and our own, each of us, we should have a mixture of masculine and feminine principles. We need both. But when we're being, forced to live overexpressed, with all sorts of parts of ourselves cut off and stuffed into the shadow, it makes for a pretty toxic culture, unfortunately.
Yes. And so we came up with this, like, idea, I don't want to say solution, but idea that in order to readdress this balance, it really is about women reclaiming power, reclaiming feminine energy. And this is why we came up with the name, right? Women Are the Medicine. So do you want to explain it?
I'll have a go. So, well, I think we've touched on this before. I mean, literally, what that means, women are the medicine, is that women women are the medicine. We are medicine for ourselves.
Yes.
Okay,
We have everything we
because
need.
we have everything we need, and all of those shadow parts of ourselves, the parts that we've cut off and denied and exiled, we can reclaim those in the when we have the right kind of support. Our body knows, our soul knows what it is that we need in order to become whole again. So that is one of the foundations. Then the next one is that women are medicine for each other. We're talking there about the interpersonal, and we're talking in broad senses that in all of our relationships we can be medicine for other people. We can be medicine for our partners, our kids, our friends. But I think for us, the really important part of that is that women are medicine for each other, because in the current way of living, although we may be surrounded by female family members and female friends, we don't sit in circle the way we used to. We don't share our dreams. We don't share our grief. We don't share that stuff. We keep it on a surface level. So women are medicine for each other is about how can we grow a community? How can we grow networks? How can we grow more of that? Just being with each other in a way that is more supportive and more of what because that is a medicine. That is something that we all really need.
We do.
And that's so lacking. And when you've got those two in place, being medicine for ourselves, being medicine for each other, that allows us to be medicine for the wider world. And that is all about the fact that each of us as individuals, I mean, going back to me being weird, is to do with embracing your weirdness, embracing what makes you unique. So it's the absolute opposite of going on bloody Instagram and going, oh God, everybody else has got better, they look more put together than me, and their reels are better, and they're talking about this, and I should be talking about that too. And oh God, I don't want to. Oh God, no, it's not about that endless comparison to other people. Know that what it is all about is that each of us, we've got the things that we are good at, the things that we are passionate about, the things we've got, our life experience that's unique to us and has shaped us. And only we can have the kind of medicine, because nobody else is us. And when we say medicine for the world, it could literally be anything. I mean, yes, you could be starting an amazing, non-profit and literally going and saving people's lives. But equally, you could be an artist, you could be a writer, you could be a coach. You could, but there is something that wants to be expressed through you that only you can express. And that has the power to have an impact, which is something that the world needs right now. It really needs. And I think it's important to say that I think for us, and it's not about like being a great partner or a great parent. Those things are super important, right? But this is really about having some kind of bigger impact on the world around us, even if that's just in, the people that you coach. But there's something more than simply living out your kind of reproductive nature as a woman. There's something more than that that's calling to be expressed. And so that is, in essence, what Women Are the Medicine is all about.
Yes. It's a call to arms. Anyone listening, come and join. So, oh gosh, and we've had quite the journey. We've had quite the journey to this year, especially. We said that 2024 was going to be a build year. And I think we have, we've come unstuck a couple of times. And I think I'd just like to point out that we've come unstuck because we sometimes lost our connection to that bigger mission, vision, purpose that we created after that British Museum experience. Like, it's always there, but something created this little 5-degree shift out of us that had us sort of recreating, and I think you've said this to me in the past, recreating the systems that we have experienced when we were working in sort of the corporate world. We work in the outside world, and we've brought those back into our business. We've brought this idea that, work has to be hard, and, things were feeling like a little bit of a slog, right? And we've had a little bit. Yeah. And we created the art of microdosing. We've had, I think it was 6 cohorts this year, which has been phenomenal, the amount of women whose lives we've been able to touch. But behind the scenes, we've been doing other things that have felt really quite difficult. And we had a revelation. Literally, it was a matter of maybe just over a month ago. And it's created a shift in us, and it's connected us back to the universe. Has this incredible way, doesn't it, of course correcting us. It creates the dead end, it creates the hard slog, it creates the difficulty, because it's a sign. If life is hard, really fucking hard, and you're being stopped at every angle, maybe it's just a sign from the universe to say, turn the fuck around, you're going in the wrong way, reconnect. So the beauty of us being in a partnership is that we're really good at saying, okay, stop, let's go back to what our values are. Let's go back to what our vision and mission is, and what is it that we really want to do. And, because we'd come out of the psychedelic integration training, and we were certified, and we sort of immediately started putting this into practice. We set up this microdosing program. We started running retreats in the Netherlands, and we kind of put the psychedelics front and center. Right? Because we're like, this is our USP. We're really good at this, and psychedelics are amazing. But actually what it caused us to do, and this is really important for any of you ladies listening who have got your vision and your mission, and you feel like, it's like something's off again, right? You can feel it. This is what we want to remind you of. You can feel when you are aligned. You can feel life force energy flowing through. You can feel the full body yes. And when it feels hard and challenging and you're cut off from that, something's not quite right, and it requires examination. So we came back to our original, just the title, Women Are the Medicine, for ourselves, for each other, and for the world. And we're like, yeah, this is not about purely working with psychedelics to help women to feel more authentic, or to connect to their vision, or to break free of the conditioning. I mean, that is, if it was just that alone, absolutely, that's an incredible, incredible mission and vision to have. But we do have a bigger mission. And that mission is to help women be medicine for the world. That's the pinnacle of what we want to do. And so we went back a little bit to the drawing board when it came to, what are we going to do for 2025? How are we going to bring this to the world? And you know what the universe did for us? The universe showed us that when we clicked into our alignment with what it is that we really wanted to create again, when we really clicked back into that original clarity, vision, mission, out of the woodwork, with no funnel, with no paid advertising, with no marketing campaigns, women have been coming to us. Women have been knocking on our door. Really interested in your microdosing program. I've just referred other past clients saying, I've just referred 3 people to the microdosing program without us having to try, without us having to force, to push, to come up with the perfect campaign. All we've had to do is connect back to our vision and our mission and say, this is the redirection for us. And it feels phenomenal.
It does. It does. Everyone like popping up like little mushrooms. I think it is reconnecting to that mission. But there's a little bit more than that, because, and I mean, you touch on it, because this year has been a slog. It's been a bloody awful slog, a lot of it. And there's been a lot of structures and systems. And I think for me, one of the biggest things that we've actually reconnected to is pleasure. Because we were having those conversations, weren't we? Where we were just both like, I hate this. I'm not enjoying this. I'm not enjoying whatever it's setting this thing up or writing the things that we need to put into the system. It just felt yucky. And we were both depleted. We're both feeling exhausted. And so part of it, yes, it is reconnecting to the vision, but it's sort of reconnecting to the way in which that really energized us.
Yes.
And how exciting it felt and how pleasurable it felt. I think also for us, both of us really enjoy creating experiences.
Oh, yes.
Just being, so whether that's like shaping a retreat, shaping an in-person event, or creating a really amazing program.
And designing it the way that we would want it, like bringing in all the things that we love, like tarot and archetypes and somatics and the body, like bringing in the stuff that we love to do, and not being afraid, because I've never really been afraid, but somehow diluting it. And it's like, no, I don't want to dilute any of this. It feels good to include it. It feels us. It feels authentic.
Yeah. And for me, that's, there's a really lovely passage that Jung talks about, where he talks about he had various projects that he'd been thinking about doing for years and years and had never got around to. And when Jung checked in with himself, it's his process of checking in, he would check in with his inner landscape. And in his inner landscape, he had this sense of his like psychic energy, his libido, his life force energy would flow towards things that he wanted to do, which I think is such a great, I mean, I think he actually felt that and could visualize it. But I think most of us can at least feel that. We can feel when we get up in the morning, if we sit down at our desk and we've got like, am I going to do this thing or neither of them? It's like, where is my life force energy flowing? Like, what would bring me pleasure and joy? What do I want to do? Not what I should do, not what's on my to-do list.
Yes.
So that I think has been a really key pivot, I think, for us is like getting back in touch with that. And then that's led us to think about what we're creating, what we're going to launch next year.
Yeah, and I'm so flipping excited for 2025. I can already feel the energy of what we're creating. I can feel it building. I can feel it building in my body. And I know that everything's happened in alignment. And I know we've had to kind of hit a couple of dead ends, or to feel that, like to recognize that resistance from the universe, because it's teaching us, right? How do we How do we learn to play with the energies of this world? Is by understanding that sometimes you're gonna need to course correct, right? You're gonna fall down, you're gonna stand back up again. So I feel like our greatest teacher is the universe, is our bodies, is what we can feel. And to be able to teach other women this, to be able to go from force to flow in their business and have real impact. And we're talking about lives touched, we're talking about wealth accumulated, we're talking about, a business that feels not just sustainable because it is, you're getting energy from it as well as giving energy to it, but that it's nourishing things outside of itself, that it's part of a whole ecosystem, and that there is another way to do to bring forward your life's work, whether that's, like we said, as a business or as a creative project. There is a way to do that puts pleasure and joy and listening to yourself and the messages that you get from your inner world, from the universe. The universe is always speaking to us, putting that all into a tangible daily, if not hourly, or when you're in the present moment, checking in process, so that you can continue to keep realigning and to continue to keep the energy flowing, right? And knowing when you step into the masculine energy of doing, directness, and providing, and when you step into the feminine, the unseen, the creative, the intuitive. So there's this real dance and interplay. And when you unify those two polarizing forces, you create the yin and yang. You create that energy, that life force that is the force that grows the flowers and the trees and produces our fruit and keeps everything moving and flourishing. And it just feels so natural. How great to think that our business feels natural. I mean, it's like pinch myself amazing.
Yes. And it's pretty radical, I think, to have a business that feels really, really pleasurable. It's the complete opposite of what too many of us have got, like monster businesses that need constant feeding. With our time, with our energy, with money. It's just endless, insatiable. But to have that feeling of being in flow, of being in pleasure, of being able to pull on masculine, feminine. Yes, it's absolutely, it is radical. And I think we haven't really got models for this. And this is why it's so easy to get pulled back into the masculine. It's like, even when we stepped out of corporate, when we started our own businesses, all of what we've learned at work has usually been through that system of whatever it is, corporate, capitalist. This is how you run a business. You're basically taking your prefrontal cortex to work every day. This is the only thing that is valued. It's just, what can we get out of this? Mm-hmm. It's not. It doesn't respect the fact that we have bodies, we have emotions, we have families, we have friends. We've got the whole thing going on. And for women, more than men, I do believe it's really hard for us to compartmentalize work. It bleeds out into, the simple fact is that most of us have not got wives, and the lucky few that have got wives, they're probably not the kind of old school wives that are like washing your socks for you. They're going to be other women who are going to be like, wash your own socks. So, it's all one. It's all one for us. It's life work. Our life work is our business. Our life work is, family, partner, friends. It's all one. but how do we have the impact that we want? How do we express what wants to be expressed through us pleasurably, without burnout, and with enough time for all the rest of it?
Yes. And, you know, this
That
is
is what.
really about slowing down the pace of how we live. When you take away the capitalist sort of directive of profit first, like everything's about profit, right? You got to make money. You got to cut down your overheads. You got to cut your expenses. You got to be ruthless. You got to make hard deals, and actually start to see this as something that is so much more nourishing on every level, and that you can take your time. Like, nature doesn't rush. Nature just goes at the time that is the time that it takes. You can't water a seedling to get it to grow faster. In fact, you'll probably kill it. Right. So there's definitely a pace. And the toxic masculine is all about overriding that pace and shortcutting, and, you know, how can we hack it? And we're saying, no, let's not hack anything. The real hack is to understand that if you just go with the pace that it's meant to, things will build, momentum will build, as it does in the natural world, and the fruits will appear when the fruits are ready to appear. So it is radical, and it can feel counterintuitive, and it can feel, I don't want to say scary, but I think if you're in uncharted territory, so it's important to do this collaboratively, to learn from one another, right? This is uncharted territory. We're not saying we have the answers and the roadmap and the strategy. We're saying you do. You do inside of you. And all we would do is support you to discover that and to bring it forth. So it's very, very different. And it's not necessarily the easier way. But I do think it's more easeful, and definitely more pleasurable and more joyful. And, like, even just in the matter of weeks since we've, you know, we're going to share with people what we've created, but even in the weeks since we've been doing this, I have been springing out of bed and wanting to do stuff at the weekends, and, like, really excited about this. It's coming out in all sorts of ways. So
I think that for me, there's also a link between what we were talking about with microdosing, right? Of when people start microdosing, what it's actually showing you is that power that you have moment to moment, the power to choose differently, and that you have that power, importantly, that you can choose. And I think there's something along those lines in what we're talking about. When you're too far in the masculine, it becomes all about 5-year plans and, you know, big goals, really big goals, and then putting in a whole load of systems and structures to get you there, which can feel so exhausting. But what we are talking about is, by taking a step back, by slowing down, by listening to where your energy wants to flow, and paying attention to that moment by moment, then actually the interesting thing is that you get a sense of momentum. You get more energy starts coming in, more energy starts flowing, and that energy has this, you know, just amazing effect, so that you can actually get things that you thought were going to take a long time. Suddenly you get a flow of energy, a flow of inspiration. Suddenly that thing is done, and we're on to the next thing. So I kind of wanted to say that, because I think there's a danger of when we start saying, or we're bringing back the feminine, that we're going into sort of fluffy, flowy territory, and that is not true.
Mm-hmm.
It's that this is actually a way of running a business that can be so impactful, that can really sort of scale the effect that you're having, whilst feeling good. It's the opposite of that feeling of pushing a boulder uphill every bloody day, which I think for a lot of us is what running a business can feel like, because that's what's modelled to us.
Yes. So if your ears have pricked up and you're feeling tingly and energized and you're nodding or you're going, yes, this sounds amazing. Rachel and I have been writing a free guide from Force to Flow, which is all about how to work with and harness the feminine principles of business so that you can create your life's work in a way that feels joyful and pleasurable and is sustainable. Okay, so we've put that into a free guide, which is just being designed as we speak, and we're going to be sending it out for free. You can have access to it for free. So if you haven't signed up to our newsletter yet, you can do that in the show notes. I'll make sure there's a link there, and we'll be sending out the details of that. But even more exciting is that in conjunction with this free guide is that we have 2 incredible offers coming. So the first one is our minimum 3-month one-on-one package. So if you're really into one-on-one coaching and you want to go a little bit deeper and you really like this idea of feminine principles, we have a whole framework that we get to choose from to work with you to really set you on the right course. So this is great for people, or for women who are feeling like they're pushing that boulder up the hill, that they want to readdress things, that they want to start working with their intuition and listening to themselves, and they know that there's a different way to create and run their business, their life's work, to bring more pleasure and joy. So that is going to be available as of January. And we're in the middle of creating our mastermind program, which is going to be incredible group program, all to do with these feminine principles of business, where we work on a monthly basis together with other women to completely hone in and discover the art of each one of these principles. So you're going to have to wait for this, but trust me, it's a goodie. We can feel it. And again, if you haven't signed up to our newsletter, please do, because you will be the first to hear about both of these offers and the free guide when it comes out. So was there anything you wanted to add about either of those?
The free guide is really juicy. I would really recommend it. It's not one of those irritating, like, 3-page checklist PDFs. It's got some really good stuff. No, it's huge. Yeah. So, but it's quite helpful because it helps you sort of assess where you are at the minute, thinking about different feminine principles. So yeah, it's definitely worth looking up, getting on the list for.
Yes. Okay, so ending question. Neither of us are going to get out of this one. This is the tradition on the show, is to ask, if you were made Madam President of the world for just one day and you got to change a law or you get to instate a rule, universally, what would you instate?
I would create a law that taught all children in school about how change actually happens, because that should be taught, and it's not. And it leads to us all having ridiculous ideas about it being about willpower and soldiering through. So my law would be educating people about the fact that we all live in a story, a story that we've made up about ourselves, and it's a story that we can rewrite literally any minute that we choose to. And how about you?
I love that. It's interesting that both of us have gone for the sort of education system. And for me, I don't have kids, but I feel really passionately that it is with the children who are going to be able to facilitate any kind of real change for the following generations. And I think it would be really important to teach children at a very early age the power of their thoughts, the power of co-creation, and that what you think matters, and how the energy that you show up in allows you to deliberately create your experience. Because I think that we grow up with a lot of victim consciousness, right? Things happen to us. And I think those people that slip out of that net, or who've got parents or caregivers or role models who are able to show them that actually you can change your destiny, right? For me, it's mind blowing that it isn't done, right? It's really mind blowing that this simple theory of how the universe works, because it's being updated all the time. Like, how do we deliberately create our world? It starts with what we think and how we feel and how we show up. And like you say, the stories you tell ourselves. So I think between us, we've probably got it covered with the kids.
Yeah. And actually, this is what we teach women, isn't it?
Exactly.
This is what we teach women, because none of us were taught this stuff in school.
No. So, well, I can't believe the time. We've recorded 2 episodes today, and I can't believe the time. I could just speak to you forever, Rachel. I'm so honoured to be in this business with you, to be bringing this mission and vision to creation with you. And I just want to say thank you. I love you.
Oh, I love you too. We're going to have an amazing 2025.
Yes, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. We love you all. Have an incredible end of the year. Remember, the end is just the beginning of the beginning. So much love to you, and see you in 2025.